Welcome back to Classic Korea channel, where we break down the most talked about topics in Korea right now. In this video, let's talk about something really disturbing and serious today, and honestly, something I wish I didn't have to talk about at all. So, if you have been following the news in Korea lately, you've probably seen, something about this pop up over and over again in the Korean media. Like more and more young Koreans are being kidnapped in Cambodia. And they're not just scammed and not just tricked into bad jobs. Some of them are actually kidnapped and held against their will, and in some cases tortured and killed. And this is not some isolated one-off thing. It's turning into a full-blown crisis. So what's happening is basically this: criminal syndicates. A lot of them are reportedly Chinese run, are luring young people with fake job offers. And usually these ads say something like easy work, no experience required, or monthly salary 10 million Korean won, or $10,000 a month. You know the type, right? Something that lure people into like quick money. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds too good to be true, and it is. So once people land in Cambodia, they're met at the airport by someone who seems friendly and someone who's supposed to be their recruiter or their team leader. But instead of going to a real workplace, they get their passports and phones taken away. So there's no way to call home and no way to leave. And then they're taken to what people on the ground now call compounds. Okay. And these places used to be hotels or casinos. Now there are basically modern prisons. Like there are armed guards patrolling the gates, and there are high fences and cameras everywhere. And inside, the victims are forced to work, usually on like scam operations. And some people are made to run romance scams or crypto fraud, and others are forced to like act as fake investment advisors using Telegram, something like this. And some people are even beaten or sold to other groups, other gangs, if they don't cooperate. And this all came into the spotlight this year when a Korean university student was killed after being trapped inside one of these compounds. And he told his parents that he was going abroad for a school fair. And 8 days later, they got a call, and it was him from Cambodia. He said he owed money to the group after someone in Korea had stolen money out of an account tied to him, and he was being blamed for it. And if he didn't repay by a certain date, he'll be sold to another gang. He told this to his parents. And that was the last time they really heard from him, his parents. And in the weeks that followed, he was tortured and he was forced to take drugs. And he eventually died of cardiac arrest. And his body stayed in Cambodia for over 2 months. And his story broke the country's heart. And it also ripped the curtain back on what's really going on over there. And what's really shocking is that how fast the numbers have exploded. Just a few years ago, these kinds of cases were barely even on the radar, maybe a dozen a year. But then in 2024, the number of reported kidnappings of Korean nationals in Cambodia jumped to around 220. And this year, 2025, just by August, it had already hit 330. And that's what we know about. Who knows how many more never got reported. And it's not just one or two unlucky people. It's students, part-timers, people in their 20s and early 30s who saw a chance to make money fast. And that's the trap. Quick money, easy money. And once they step off the plane, it's already too late. There was another case that came out just recently. A man in his 30s from city of Sangju flew to Cambodia in August, and 5 days later, his family got a video call on Telegram, and it was him. He was holding a note that looked like a loan agreement, and he said, "Send 20 million Korean won, and I'll be free." Not long after the call ended, and his family kept getting threatening messages from unknown numbers. So they reported it to the police, and the case is still ongoing. And 2 young guys from city of Gwangju also disappeared after going to Cambodia. And the last thing they said to their families was basically, "Save me." And then nothing, just silence. And in city of Jeju, another young man was kidnapped earlier this summer. And his parents contacted through Telegram by someone who said they were holding their son. After days of threats, they ended up paying about 35 million Korean won in cryptocurrency to get him released. And he came back to Korea in August alive, fortunately, but terribly traumatized. So how does this even work logistically? And how are these gangs pulling this off so smoothly? And the answer is it's an organized machine. These compounds are built to hold dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. And according to human rights groups, there are at least 50 confirmed compounds across Cambodia, most in cities like Sihanoukville, Kampot, and near border areas like Babet. And these aren't back alley hideouts. They are industrial scale operations. And on top of that, it's not just happening because of foreign criminals. There are people in Korea involved as well. Recruiters who are often young themselves get paid to lure others, to trick others. In the case of the student who died, the person who convinced him to go was one of his former classmates. And that's how close to home it can be. Now, a missionary named Oh Chang-soo, who's been rescuing people in Cambodia since 2020, spoke out about what's happening in an interview. And according to him, Mr. Oh has already helped more than 50 Koreans escape this year alone. And when he says escape, he means literally slipping out in the middle of the night, sneaking out to the gates and getting picked up by his car. And he said that he cannot go inside the compounds. Why? Because it's too dangerous. The guards are armed, and some are linked to the local mafia. So the only way to save people is if the victims can make it to the gate themselves. And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't, he says. He said there are at least 2 or 3 people right now that he's lost contact with entirely, and God knows what happened to them. He also says something that was striking. Every time a news article breaks in Korea about this, about Cambodia, he says he always leaves the same comments online. Please do not come here. Don't fall for it. Now, the South Korean government has finally started to respond more aggressively. So on October 10th, 2025, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the Cambodia ambassador and issued a special travel advisory for Phnom Penh. And basically, they are telling people, do not go. Unless it's absolutely necessary, do not travel to Cambodia. Now, the National Police of Korea also announced that they are setting up what they call a Korean desk in Cambodia. And it's supposed to help coordinate with local police in real time. The hope is that it will speed up rescues and give families more direct lines of communication. But here's the thing. Like we said, once someone is inside a compound, getting them out isn't simple. Even with diplomatic pressure, these are criminal networks that operate outside the law. And Cambodia's weak law enforcement, and in some cases, corruption, makes everything worse. Sorry. And Sinokville, where many of these compounds are located, was once a booming casino hub. Then the pandemic hit, COVID-19, and the tourism crashed, and the criminal networks moved in. And some officials turned a blind eye, and others are rumored to be on the take. Now, human rights groups have called it an industrialized scam economy. And it's not just Koreans. Victims from Taiwan, Thailand, Vietnam, and other countries are trapped too. And here's a part that's hardest to say, that this isn't going away anytime soon, it seems. Like the networks are too big, and the money flowing through these operations is pretty enormous. Like crypto scams, phishing, and fake investment schemes is billions of dollars. And young people, especially in Korea, who are desperate for opportunities or who are desperate for making quick bucks, keep walking straight into it, thinking they are getting a good deal. And that's why prevention matters so much. Like once someone is inside, it's a fight for their life. But if they never get on that plane in the first place, it's a fight that doesn't have to happen. So I don't know if you're watching this or reading this, reading about this, and you have ever thought about taking one of those overseas job offers that sounds just a little too perfect, think twice or think 10 times. Because if someone says, we will pay for your flight, we'll give you housing, you will make, I don't know, like $10,000 a month, that's a huge red flag. And if they can't give you a real, I don't know, company name, a legal contract, or official paperwork, it's probably a scam. And in this case, it's not the kind of scam where you just lose some money. It's the kind where people disappear and lose their lives. Right now, Korean police are investigating both domestic recruiters and overseas networks. And there are negotiations happening between Korean government and Cambodian government. And there are people like Missionary Mr. O, risking their lives to help victims escape. And there are also families, right? So many families still waiting by their phones, hoping for a call that never comes. And this is happening to people who live in our neighborhoods, and it's happening right now. Which is why Korean people are being shocked, terrified of these news that they've been reading nowadays, because it's all over the news media. So if there's one message to take away from all this, is that don't believe the fake promises. And if someone is being recruited for one of these jobs, speak up. Because the moment they land and they enter these compounds, or maybe the moment they land at the airport, it may already be too late. And for those who are already trapped inside, I hope the growing pressure, like these investigation, the diplomatic push, and the rescues actually lead to something real. Actual dismantling of these compounds, because it's pure evil. Because it is organized, industrialized human trafficking. And unless the world treats it like the emergency it is, more families are going to get those terrifying late night calls. And I just cannot imagine how they must be feeling. Of course, I think everyone needs to be educated properly about these phishing and scam calls and these operations. I know that not everyone is not exempt or immune, but for some reason, Korea is known for. Do you know that like the leverage ETFs, like the stocks with high leverage, they are super popular in Korea to the extent that like Korea is known for the highest volumes when it comes to those leverage products. Why am I saying this? Because for some reason, Korean people, especially young people or like middle-aged people as well, they want to make money fast. And usually when that happens, psychologically, you end up losing money. And then you end up desperately wanting job offers that help you make money quick. I think that might be the case why there are increasingly high numbers of Korean nationals getting tricked and scammed and become victims like this case. Super unfortunate. Now, before I wrap, let me read you an article that really captures the human side of this crisis. The headline reads, "The Nightmare of Cambodia's casino slaves. If you run, we will kill you." And the story centers on a young woman in her 20s who managed to escape from a criminal compound in Cambodia. Her name has been changed to Kim Ga-young. She was 27 when it all started. And at the time, she was job hunting in Korea when someone she trusted, the owner of a shop she used to visit often, told her about a good overseas job in Cambodia. Okay, and he said a Korean acquaintance running a business there was looking for employees. And the offer sounded pretty amazing to her. 5 million Korean won a month plus tips. And when she asked what kind of work it was, he only said it would be like tour guide work and insisted it wasn't illegal. So Miss Kim Ga-young, was tired of being unemployed. So it sounded like a chance to finally get her life moving. So she decided to go. Now, the moment she arrived at the Phnom Penh International Airport, two men were waiting. She wasn't alone. Another young woman named Min Suji was on the same flight. Now, they didn't know each other before that day. On the way, they noticed things were not adding up. Like they each been told different things about where they would work and how much they would be paid. But by then, it was too late to turn back. So they were driven 3 hours south to how do I properly pronounce this? Pronunciation. Sihanoukville.
Sihanoukville.
Oh, sorry. All right, one more time.
Sihanoukville.
Sihanoukville. Okay, I was actually butchering the pronunciation. Sorry about that.
Sihanoukville.
Sihanoukville. All right. So they were driven 3 hours south to Sihanoukville, which is a city full of casinos and hotels. And the building looked luxurious from the outside, but the job turned out to be inside a small VIP room in a casino. And they were told they would work as casino avatars, basically sitting in front of a camera, placing bets in real time for remote gamblers watching online. And it was an illegal gambling operation, and they were the ones doing the work. And very quickly, the friendly tone disappeared. The Korean managers began shouting and threatening them. They said things like, "If you try to run, we will break your arms and legs and dump you on the beach. Or if you try to escape, we will plant drugs in your luggage so you will end up in a Cambodian jail." And they even threatened that if they died overseas, shipping the body home would cost 40 million won. And the promised tips were taken away, and passports were already confiscated. And Miss Kim fought back and managed to keep hers, but Suji wasn't so lucky. And from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., every single day, they sat in front of a camera, placing bets on illegal baccarat games for strangers. And they weren't allowed to leave or eat properly or even use the bathroom freely. The only outing they were allowed was to walk to a tiny convenience store nearby. And even then, they had to go together because the gang made them watch each other. If one ran, the other would be punished. Now, Miss Kim tried to escape once, just a week after arriving. So she secretly bought 2 plane tickets, one for herself and one for Suji. But security was pretty tight and the plan failed. Suji was terrified because she owed the recruiters money and she refused to cooperate. Then Miss Kim tried again. She used quick thinking to shake off the managers and made it to the hotel lobby. And there, she managed to contact the Korean consular hotline through an app on her phone. And an officer arrived to meet her. So she rushed into a taxi and went straight to the airport. She didn't even bother collecting her suitcase. She just ran. And she said, that's when I finally broke down and crying. 그제야 눈물이 터져나왔어요. And she still doesn't know exactly who the people behind everything were. The operation was in Cambodia, but the managers were Korean. And she said she heard whispers that the headquarters was in Hong Kong. And that's part of the problem because these are crimes that are almost impossible to trace without international cooperation. And even after escaping, she says that the fear hasn't gone away. She still gets anxious and she still thinks about Suji, the other woman who was left behind. She doesn't know what happened to her. Because she never heard from her again. Sounds like a movie to me that I've watched like a couple months ago. Pretty dark about like Korean gangsters, like international gangsters with Korean victims. But it is happening right now. And this is something that Korean media has been talking about. So I wanted to share with you. And I want to leave with questions. Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear these stories? Does it sound too familiar? Does it also occur to your country as well? Like, does your media in your country, in your region, talk about this? And if someone you know received a high-paying overseas job offer like this, what would you tell them? And if you were in the position of the families getting those ransom calls, what would you do? And how can awareness about these scams be spread more effectively, especially to young people who may be vulnerable targets? And have you personally ever come across suspicious overseas job offers or scam calls? And how did you handle it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And let's all be careful. And hopefully this just never happens to people we know of or people, our families, or to us, fingers crossed that this just never happens altogether. But the world is not a perfect place. All right. See you later. Peace and love. Bye-bye.